Welcome, everybody. This is the Fall Line with Chaos and Company, and I'm here with my partner, Angela Ross, and I'm Dave Capron. And what's going on, fellas? We've got Dave Schuiling here. Dave, what have you been up to?
Just enjoying summer, trying to enjoy the last little bits of it. But yeah, winter's in the air.
Any white up on the peaks?
Not quite yet here in Steamboat, but just south of us in Summit County, apparently there's been some dustings up high.
Yeah.
A-Basin's making snow and temperatures are dropping for sure. So
ramping up. Angela, what's going on, man? I saw you get on your rollerblades the other day.
Yeah, trying them out. They're still cramped.
No war wounds, no raspberries, nothing?
I stayed pretty much vertical.
There you go. All right. Sounds good.
Do you whiplash as hard on blades as you do on a skateboard?
No, I can whiplash with the best of them on my skateboard. But a couple of times on the blades, I was with Amanda. We were both out. It was our first time on our new setups. I'd lose my balance and look like somebody threw a cat out the window, and she'd catch the glimpse of this like starfish out of her peripheral vision. Turn like, what the hell is the matter with you?
Yeah.
Trying to not get killed.
Oh man, that's awesome. Awesome. But you do quite a bit of biking out west, don't you, Dave?
Yeah, mountain biking is one of the summer activities for sure. I like to get out as much as possible. So it's been really nice lately because the crunch of the leaves under the tires is pretty sweet.
Cool.
All colors.
Yeah, it just every time I see any of you guys posting out there, any of your mountain biking stuff, it just just everything looks so awesome looking at the photos and all the backgrounds. It's like, oh my God, so cool.
Although, you know what? I mean, everyone raves about the aspen leaves here in Colorado, but we don't get leaves like New England gets leaves. Like you all get leaves. All the colors.
Yeah. So, hey, let's get going. But I want to first thank the friends of the podcast and our sponsors. I want to thank Blizzard Technica, who's been on. This is third season, Angelo. They've been with us. Pretty awesome to have them along with us. And then also we have Nick's Boot Fitting over at Mount Snow, and Nick Blaylock helping us out all these years, making sure our boots are dialed in. If you haven't done that yet, you should get out there and get that ready and get an appointment. And then also Rollerblade, as we were talking about. Angelo's been out on his new set, and I've been out on mine. And each of us did not take video of that. Maybe after we get out a few more times. But thanks to Rollerblade for helping us out too. But we have today an awesome podcast for you. We have Dave Schuiling, who is our Director of Education for PSIA-AASI, our national organization piece that he's going to explain a little bit because a lot of people think they oversee the regions, and it's more of a collaboration and affiliation type agreement. So I really wanted to just have folks, because they get confused, Dave, with that relationship and national and the regions. And if you could kind of just explain a little bit in your words, your role as the Director of Education and how that fits in with the regions across the country.
Yeah, you bet. The national office is based in Lakewood, Colorado. I actually have the privilege and joy to work mostly here from Steamboat Springs, Colorado. I previously went to work at the Rocky Mountain Regional Office. I was there for about 5 years before then I transitioned to our national office. But, as members know, there's 8 different regions. And I'd like to kind of say that we all are national because we're really working towards, the rest of the world sees us as one national association. And we happen to have the geographic regional territories that make us up because we're just so vast. In order to service all of our members and our member schools and resorts, we need to break it up in some different offices. But as far as I'm concerned, almost my full-time job is trying to make sure that everybody's working tightly together as a national association. So.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. That it's like, I know even when Nick was still our CEO, he was like, there's not this national thing over everybody. It's really more of a collaboration and cooperation type thing. It's nice that continues. you talked a little bit about yourself there, and then you were at Rocky Mountain and their director of education programs for like 3 years before this. And I know you've mentioned we had Mike Porter on the podcast very recently, and I was curious because I know you said he's had a big influence on you. I just thought you might want to chat a little bit before we really get going on stuff on his influence and what you think about how it's cool that he has been inducted and will be inducted this winter into the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame.
It's so cool, and it's so deserving, and it's really a long time coming. It's great that that we're finally going to see that happen for Mike. I would say, in a nutshell, Mike's the reason why I'm sitting right here talking to you guys right now. I mean, back a while ago when I was working for the Rocky office, he's always been a mentor. And when I was, working more on snow, working for the region before I then worked in the regional office, he tapped me on the shoulder and suggested that I aim a little higher or over or however you want to call it, to our national office, and whether or not that would be something that I would be interested in doing. He said he thought that I might be able to help out in that role, and that planted the seed. And I understand from stories that I've heard he also was in other people's ears, in particular someone who was in charge of the national office at that point in time. And then before you knew it, within about a month's time, next thing you know, we're starting to talk about the idea of it. And, so, Mike played a big part in that, but it was really just him kind of just like he's done for so many of us, just believing in us and putting the idea that we can reach a little higher. And, that's what he did for me, and, forever grateful, and absolutely love the guy. Love to work with him, and so happy and proud of him for all he's done for us.
Man, that's cool. And I imagine he definitely saw some stuff that, like, I knew you had 2 gold pins, but there's 3 gold pins. So my question is, like, are you done with 3? Like, there's a couple more you could get, or like, what are you doing? Just hanging around doing nothing? You only have 3. Maybe you should go for 4 or 5. But seriously, I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, you have your Alpine Level 3 certification. You have your snowboard Level 3. You also have your telemark Level 3 certification. And I believe you're still active with your snowboard and Alpine as an ed staff member in Rocky Mountain region.
Yeah, by about a thread, but yeah, no, but it's hard to juggle it all. But I've always believed that it's important to kind of stay super relevant, and to be able. I still get in the locker room here at Steamboat and help out during the busy times here or there, help out with some training. That was the reason why I kind of said, I'm interested in this position, but I feel like if I'm really going to do it justice, I need to stay in the mountains. I need to stay relevant. I need to stay closer to what we do, what our members do day in and day out. So I'm not moving to Lakewood. And that was my first kind of almost like demand. Yeah. And then when he said, well, I'd be willing to talk about it. You'll be the first remote employee ever. But let's continue the chat. So, but yeah, no, that's always been a thing for me, is just, when I started to go down the pathway of achieving kind of credentials, and it really made me more of a versatile instructor. I saw it as a way to be able to relate to more people. And then, you kind of get into the learning piece of it. I've always been motivated by that, kind of like I can do that almost mindset. It's like, I could do that too. It's like, but yeah, Joe, is what I discovered through time with just, working towards, just trying to better myself is the impact that I had on a broader, array of different types of people that I could, interact with on the snow, which was a cool piece of it. And that continues today, being able to go to a regional training and spend one day on skis and another day on a snowboard, and then be able to interact with the staff. There's a relevance piece. There's a credibility piece. It's great. That's why I sometimes run myself ragged trying to do it all, but, it's important.
It's impressive. I mean, I have, which I'm pretty proud of, to have two with Alpine and Telly. And, there's a few others and that have two. I've known one or two, maybe others. I know one other that has 3 golds. No, I have a couple because I'm one at Telly, track skate, and Alpine. But the time commitment, we hear it a lot from our members, the time commitment. You had to dedicate and probably continue to an incredible amount to stay current, as you say, on all 3 apparatus, the Telly skis, the Alpine skis, the snowboard. I mean, how much time do you get to spend on each? Because you're a busy man with the director of education.
Yeah. There's certainly not enough time to be able to do justice by them all or enjoy them all. But once upon a time, when I was younger and had way more energy and more time, teaching full time for sure, and just being able to be out on snow all the time, and like literally put well over 100 days a season, you're out there, you're just doing it day in and day out. So it's kind of just part of it. But
do you think the Western season being a little longer in general compared to especially our Eastern season, or snow, or what was some of the things that, definitely it was your commitment, but what was the journey like? That's what I'm curious of. Did you do one at a time and kind of finish through? Were you doing them together?
I was kind of juggling them all, kind of maybe not all at the same time, but I was trying to think about what came first. I want to say it was 94-ish. It was the first, I went through one of those first Alpine level 1 processes when the level 1 became a thing. And then, so I actually did that. I think that was really the first piece, but, I had been snowboarding already, and then I kind of discovered telemark and checked that out. So, I think the same year, a couple of years later, I think I got my Alpine 2 earlier in the season in January or something like that. And then that spring, I went to a big telemark festival, as they used to be, where you could get 1, 2, or 3 in a 3-day process or whatever else. That's my first gold pin, was Telly 3, actually. In that particular season. I think the following season, then I went and got my Alpine 3, and in the mix there too, I was doing snowboard stuff as well. It was just part of it. It's just part of being fully immersed, full time as a pro, teaching, training and whatever else. And so it was just kind of part of what you did there, and just balancing it all. That was the fun thing back in the day, when I, was much younger and had more energy, like I said.
It's so awesome, Angelo. As we talk to more and more folks that we have on the podcast, the commitment and kind of the passion and how things just happen. And I was doing this, and then I saw this, telemark festival, and I went. It's really cool how things just kind of steamroll. Sometimes there's a plan, and sometimes like, these things just seem to happen. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
My plans are things I imagine after I get somewhere. I look back and go, oh yeah, that was a plan.
Right. No. If you say it with enough confidence, you can make it look like you had a plan there, but it's like, not so much.
Yeah. So we always ask the first timers on the podcast, when did you learn how to ski? That's what I'm curious. Like, I'm imagining you said Telly was something you picked up, but then it was your first gold pin. But I'm assuming Alpine was the first thing you did versus snowboard when you first learned how to do something on snow. Your first experience ever. Well, if you were to include, or in the gravity-driven world, yes. But actually, it all started in cross-country skis for me when I was quite young. I grew up in Michigan, and although there's tons of skiing, great skiing, it's relatively flat, especially where I grew up in Grand Rapids. So we started as a family skiing together, just in the woods and trails and such. And we would do trips up north to places like Barothi Lodge and Homewood, Homewood, I think it's still called. And
it wasn't until sixth grade ski club, getting on the school buses and going out to Cannonsburg every Tuesday night, that I started alpine skiing. So that was it for me. But when I jumped on alpine gear, I'd already, on cross country skis, any little tiny hill, I was hiking up and trying to figure out how to, make parallel turns or Christie turns or whatever else, even telly turns on like track skis and stuff like that. So when I got kind of bolted down in heavy metal equipment like alpine gear, I was like, this is awesome. Easy.
That's cool.
At the time, or at least that's what I thought, as a sixth grader, all night skiing at Cannonsburg on Tuesday nights. So that's, and then I was hooked from there. That was kind of it. So.
That's cool. Nordic is his background. That's what we can say, Angel. Nordic is really his background. He started on the cross-country skis. The first gold pin was the telly. See that he's rooted in the Nordic.
Always a free healer. That's right. Yep.
And when did you come to teaching snow sports? When was the big move to go, somebody pushed me into it, or I need to teach skiing, or I need to get a ticket, so I got to do something?
Yeah, like most of us, that was the last thing you said was the reason why. But to get to it, I didn't ski out west until my sophomore year of high school, and our first trip was to Breckenridge, and I couldn't, driving out of then, Stapleton Airport at the time, out of Denver, and just driving up the hill through into Evergreen. I just absolutely could not believe it. Believe that there were hills that big. And so with that started Western trips. And of course, then it's like, well, I'm going to school out here in Colorado. And so I went to University of Colorado in Boulder, and then, that was it. I was trying to figure out how to get a pass. And so I discovered National Sports Center for the Disabled in Winter Park, their program. Amazing, well over 1,000 instructor program, volunteer instructor program that they still have to this day, teaching adaptive sports. And I started doing that. So that's my first, teaching on snow, at least on snow, was for NSCD, back in the day. There is a little bit of a crossover though that relates, because I had been coaching water skiing, 3-event water skiing, for a few years beforehand. I grew up doing that in the summers, which I think lends itself to this idea of just sliding on multiple implements, so to speak, because as a 3-event water skier, I was jumping, trick skiing, slalom water skiing. You just kind of do those things naturally and you train all 3 of them. And so when I translated that to snow, it's like, I snowboard and alpine and whatever it is, it's going to make me better the more different things I slide on. So why not? Why not try to do as many as you can? So, and in Michigan, the hills were small, so maybe it was out of boredom too. It's like, let's just see what else we can slide on. Yeah.
Angelo, you're a little like him, man, because you love sliding on anything. You had the cross-country gears on a little video last year. You put that on. You do the snowboard, alpine. You even do a little ski patrolling. I haven't heard Dave say he doesn't, hasn't been out with the ski patrols, but I mean, definitely a lot of mixed stuff there, which is cool.
I think I just remembered that video you were talking about. It was across a big patch of mud, right?
It was across a big patch of mud, yes.
And that's all we had last year in the East. That's just what was in front of me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you were like running versus skiing.
Right. No, I agree. I wasn't clever enough to be intentional with multiple devices. Like I didn't say to myself, if I do this one, I'll get better at that one. That was another thing that occurred out. I realized afterward, this is Nordic skiing absolutely makes you better at alpine. There's just no question. I kind of learned that in retrospect, but it's true. And I'm happy to have benefited from the dumb luck of getting maybe getting a little bit more skillful on each because of the others, but yeah, it's certainly not intentional. you know.
So many parents will say like, well, I want little Junior to really get good at skiing first before I'm going to let them try snowboarding. And it's like, well, if you don't want them to snowboard, you might want to change your thought process there, because you can tell them that they can't do it. They're going to go ahead and do it anyway.
Yeah.
But I never bought into that because, as we know, it's going to make you better at the other sport the more you branch out. And so that's always been kind of my mantra when parents or coaches or whatever else have come to me to say like, well, what do you think about that? Shouldn't they get better at this one thing first? My usual answer was no. They should check that out too. Probably make them better at both. So,
yeah. And we want to chat a little bit about Interski here quick, but I want you to chat a little bit about Angelo first and his new role. I told Angelo when we got together in the last podcast, I had to practice his, hopefully I get it right now too, his title. And he said he had to look at you had to look at your letterhead to make sure I had it right.
I had an email open, so I just double checked what you were saying.
Yes, it was. Yeah, you checked.
Let me do the same thing here. Hold on a second.
Yeah, the Education Development Manager, which is pretty cool. I mean, he reports directly, from what I understand. You can correct it if wrong, to you, the Director of Education. And but yeah, he's the Education Development Manager. Can you just let our folks know a little bit about what Angelo's role is going to be, some of the things he's going to be doing, how it relates to the regions?
Yeah, absolutely. It's this is exciting. Angelo aside, the role's exciting. No, I'm just kidding. Both things are exciting, and the reason why is because we've been working on this to try to be able to support all the cool stuff that we're doing. And, 4 or 5 years ago, actually a little bit more than that now, when I came into my role, I recognized that we were already way behind the curve on digital learning. And we made some efforts to work on that. We developed a learning management system and a hosting platform for e-learning courses and all of our recorded webinars and things like that. And so we wanted to make sure that we had a committed, devoted role in that. And that's Kelly Levitas, who's our digital learning manager. Previously, the additional role within the office to myself was just to collect everything else educationally, which means that would mean digital learning. That could mean working on a new manual or manuals or education resources, continuing to make sure our standards are updated. Just all the things that we work on through the national office, as well as potentially initiatives like a kind of small one we're working on right now called strategic alignment. That's just a very little initiative. But what's cool is that we were able to bring in an additional role to the education department in education development, something or other. But then we recognized that we actually needed more in events and management. Laura Duff has transitioned over into that role, which then opened up this incredible opportunity to really define this role as how I'd envisioned it for many, many years, to really be able to have enough bandwidth, so to speak, to think a little bit bigger educationally and do, and what's next, those types of pieces. I think I know personally, over the last several years, I've almost felt like I've been treading water with my lips, like barely above the water, or maybe a straw, just trying to keep up with everything. And we haven't had the bandwidth to really push it and think what else we can do. So having Angelo come on, make sure that we so-called keep all the plates spinning, all the balls in the air that we currently have going. And there's several, but in terms of taking on all the new projects, and then supporting all the really cool ideas that come out of the regions, because that's another piece too. Like, I think sometimes historically the regions have felt like the national office moves a little too slowly to try to react to our members' needs. And so I think sometimes we get some drift, and a region will go off in a certain direction and not realize that another region is going in the same direction, but they didn't actually communicate, didn't know they were both duplicating the same efforts. And So I think that's a big part of what we do there. So being able, for Angelo to be able to be on the road a little bit more like I do, to be able to visit all the regional trainings and keep the communication going, be the conduit. Again, like we talked about at the beginning of this deal, act and look like a real national association. That's the goal. So
that's cool.
Happy to have them on board.
Are there any specific projects you have them working on now that we can hear about or coming down the pike soon? Any fall stuff?
We're working really hard to get the Digital Learning Hub launched, and that's, maybe you've heard about it, that it has been coming. We've been trying to get it. It's a revamp of our whole digital learning platform under a new name, a little bit more interesting sounding than learning management system, which sounds so techy and no one really knows what the heck that means anyway. But Digital Learning Hub means something. So what we're doing is we're bringing the matrix, all of our e-learning, and we're bringing back a community forum, and we're putting it all under one website called the Digital Learning Hub. So right now we're in the process of going through the 400 plus matrix videos. Angelo's a little cross-eyed right now from actually migrating a lot of those videos. It's an opportunity to also evaluate the videos and make sure that they're still current or make any changes. We're looking at freshening up video content there. We just wrapped up a new product called the Children's Alpine Field Guide, which is a new handbook that goes along with the Teaching Children's Snow Sports Manual. That's a really fun project. It's a collection of games and activities for anybody. It's not just for children's instructors, because adults can be big kids too. And it's just a fun way to put together a bunch of activities based on a level to help pros get more creative out there related to fundamentals. Mark Aiken from the East, Kevin Jordan from Rocky, and Ryan Ravinsky from Jackson Hole. It was actually his kind of brainchild, and started a collection of notebook activities that we're kind of bringing to life. Angelo's been working on that. And then the other pieces are around strategic alignment and standards and resources and all those types of things. So
a lot going on. I think a lot of folks don't realize how much goes on, and it's sometimes you think things just come and you see it and you go, you don't think about what was put into it. And I know Angelo, he's been talking a little bit with me, telling me how many videos and all the migration, the time it takes. And like you said, checking through each one. So yeah, he's been definitely cross-eyed at times when he's talked to me, but this is kind of for both of you with the children's thing. The children's guide was awesome. The children's manual, it is just a great piece. And if this new children's piece is even half as good, it's going to be awesome. What should people look for now? How is that going to add to the children's manual? That's a piece they can take with them or something that.
Yeah, it's the initial kind of book looked like this. This is what actually Ryan built together, and it was just a collection with QR codes.
Cool.
And so it's going to be handbook style, but also a digital format so you can have on your phone. And each activity has a corresponding video that brings it to life, which is kind of fun as well. So you can actually read the description based on the correlating fundamental and skills per level. And if you're into it that way, and be like, okay, yep, got that. I'm going to go take that and go play with that with my group, and or you can click play and watch the video of it. We hope to try to continue to freshen up that content as well. But there's a collection of videos in there. The idea was that it wasn't going to be a mini manual like some of our other handbooks. It was actually going to be a real relatable, applicable piece to the manual. The manual's got more theory and everything else. You read that on the comfort of your own home, on your couch or whatever else. You take this on the snow with you, is basically the idea. So.
That's awesome. Go ahead, Angel. I think you probably have some thoughts now.
Yeah.
A couple. I mean, I think you're first question sort of alluded to what people should expect. And I would encourage folks, if they get it, when they get it, to look at it from the big picture view, like learn the structure of the whole thing and see how it's divided up with levels and skills and stuff like that, and understand the structure. But because everything in there is so accessible, But I think it's interesting because, like, coming up through in the early and mid 90s, before cell phones, we always had that Alpine handbook in our pocket. It's a pocket-sized piece. A lot of people our age, like a little longer in the tooth, getting longer in the tooth, will recognize that, I think, as something that we really relied on to understand how to teach people to ski, and I'm I'm interested to see how people engage with it now that we've become so used to having phones, and the beauty of it is it sort of partners with your phone. You can have them both in your pocket, and if you want to see the video, and you can read the description on the paper, you can get your phone out and scan the QR code and watch the video right there on the chair. And I think that's a great addition for it. And it dawned on me as I was saying that, I almost said, if it's not raining, you can pull it out. And then I realized how much of an Eastern thing that is to say.
Oh.
But if you're in Steamboat, you can pull it out whenever the hell you want.
Totally.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. But I think it takes so much work to put those together. I know just for the manual alone, how much material was led up to then. Mark Aiken and Kevin Jordan talked about that. There was an immense amount of information, stuff people had done that they were starting to compile versus they didn't start from scratch. And so it's pretty cool to let people know, I think, how much goes into it to have it come out. It's not like you can just snap your fingers and out comes some great educational pieces instantly. And I think the kids, the new children's manual teaching snow sports to children was awesome. I think I love the piece in there that gives the quotes where we have it's like 40 or 50 great educators that what makes a great children's instructor. Those alone, I don't know who thought that up, but really makes you think of the different views of some of our folks, all great, but just from different angles of what they think makes a great children's instructor is really cool. So I'm looking forward to seeing the handbook.
Just to add to that real quick, we're working on finally getting a new version of our adaptive snowboard manual out. We're hoping that December, and a good timing because the 8th national standard of the full system, or as I say, the full box set from redoing all of our standards is coming out here. Actually, to be approved by the board this month, are the adaptive snowboard standards. And so that'll be the last of the 8. So exciting stuff there as well. And then, of course, then you asked about Angelo's work. We'll be working to help that task force complete all of the resource materials like the assessment forms and the performance guides and all those things that go along with the standards. So,
yeah, that's kind of a question I had, because the performance guides, when they came out, everyone talked about they're going to be kind of a living document. Mm-hmm. But it must be somewhat challenging. It's not like you can just change one thing in one spot, because our performance guides are linked in terms of especially people skills, teaching skills between all the disciplines. So they all kind of move at the same time a little bit in those realms, especially. So there's a lot of pieces, I know, with the Educational Leadership Council, and you have task forces for all the different disciplines. So how will Angelo's role? I imagine he'll be deep into that with you in terms of all those task forces.
Yeah, I think he's probably already told you he's been spending a lot of time late night on calls and things like that. That's another piece that's great. I think we've hired within the national office some very specific skill sets, but one that we didn't necessarily have was super relevant, relatable skills to what we do on snow. And that's what Angelo brings as well. So that the two of us can work closely together and in terms of covering all those task force calls, because it's kind of like, it was years ago, it was kind of one of those be careful what you wish for things. It's like we got behind this initiative around consistency, and for whatever reason, for the longest time, we didn't really connect with latching on and getting it done. But in 2016, something happened where we're like, all right, we're going to finally do this. Let's figure it out. And so with that, after the first couple of fall conferences with all the task forces and the ELC, well, now it's like a train that you just can't stop. It's ridiculous the amount of time that people are devoting to evening Zoom calls and whatever else, because everyone's just charging for this goal. It's so exciting. It's so cool. It's like it's so to be able to keep up now, that's another thing that Angelo and I are discovering on almost like a daily basis. It's like, okay, who's talking today or tonight? And can you cover that? Because I got to cover this one. So there's a lot of kind of that going on. It's really exciting, and hats off to everybody putting in just like so many hours of awesome work, because we no one group or even one office could even imagine to get this accomplished.
And there's a lot of our ed staff members that are out there in the different regions, and just people in education. And then you also have the team members there's a lot of different facets that are on those task forces versus just one group that's coming from a bunch. And what is our team up to? This is their third, because this is a 3-year term. We have our team going into their last season. They just came off of Interski. And I know most or all of the team members are involved in some way in the task forces in different areas. But what are they involved in team-wise? What's the team looking forward to, other than some of them definitely are looking for the tryout next spring, but what are they looking for in their last year, and what do you and the organization have the team moving forward with this year?
Yeah, well, this term was the anomaly 3-year term because of COVID. So we had the first 5-year term because we extended during COVID, and then this team is realizing the first shortened term. So a short amount of time to get a whole lot of work done, especially with an Interski year. Usually there's a couple seasons to kind of prep and get ready, and then it's go time. This time around it was just one season. So moving into this fall cycle, the coaching staff and myself, so Jeb Boyd, who's the head coach, as well as all the other coaches, we really wanted to put the focus back to the team, because I think in a lot of ways, people think that when you become a team member, suddenly you're just supposed to be the one that's all knowing and on point 100% of the time. These are some of the best learners as well. And we recognize that they were doing the team did a ton of work, has done a ton of work. And so we're looking for more of a professional development focus for them for moving into this season, and provide some real training to the team, focus on that, focus on what their next chapter might be, whether it's another term or what's next in their career. And you did mention the initiative with more team members involved in more task force work, and that's been a real significant piece that changed probably 4 or 5 years ago as well, when we made a point to really try to integrate the team and task forces working more closely together, as opposed to team over here doing team stuff, task forces over here doing the other things. The merging of that effort, of that work, I think has been one of the catalysts for getting us to where we are right now with strategic alignment, as opposed to just having that being separate. The other piece, speaking of being separate or being siloed, is this initiative to work together across disciplines. That's been the other just massive thing as well, because we talked about, like in the new standards, if you look at the teaching skills and the people skills, they're identical across all the standards. That's the first time that's ever really happened. And it's kind of weird to think that it hadn't been that way. But the only reason why is because when standards were developed, the Alpine group would be over here working on their standards, snowboard would be over here in various rooms, and they'd come out with like, here it is. It's like, well, that looks a lot different than that, and that looks different than that. It's like, why is that? So that was another effort to get things tighter, more aligned. For guys like us that like to cross over and do multiple certifications, then what's cool is the stuff looks very similar across disciplines, as opposed to not knowing where to look to find what you might need. So
yeah, hopefully that influences some folks to see it might be a little bit easier in terms of the terminology and language and that stuff. Because at times when I was going Alpine Telly 20 some years ago, when I was first getting into the telly world, it was sometimes the language was different. Going back to the Alpine, it was different words. And what are you talking about? So it's cool to have
back to the team. We're excited to kind of hear, more from them on what their needs are, moving into this cycle, and then take that into the springtime, and hopefully, just create some new energy around what this next team is all about. But celebrate the work that this current team has done, because it's been the success of Interski and everything else, and where we are with strategic alignment. A lot has to do with the commitment and passion of this team. It's awesome.
Yeah, and speaking of the strategic alignment, I mean, that's been going on a year or two now, at least, that you've been calling it that, with the ed staffs across the country, especially. And we've been getting training in certain areas, and I know we got some cool stuff coming down the road this winter. I've had a little bit kind of told to me a little bit that's coming out from Josh Fogg, and I'm looking forward to that stuff that Josh is working on with us with the ed staffs. And how is that going in your view? Angela and I have talked a lot about how we feel it's going here in the East with our assessments, formerly the exams and the assessments now, and our new assessment forms, and those being where they are. How are you feeling, and where do you see us going still?
We've had, let's see, I guess you asked about kind of how long it's been going on, but there was a pretty significant meeting that we talked about in 2016, a big leadership summit. And yet again, they came back and said they charged us with becoming more consistent, essentially. Strategic goal 3, speaks to collaboration, cooperation, and consistency, or something to that effect. So that's kind of when this concept of strategic alignment came to be, and the new standard started to be developed. Some huge wins, like, not too long ago, we all remember everybody had a different way of measuring pass or fail. It was either pass or fail, or it was 10 points, 6 points, 4 points. I mean, there were all these different, and then criteria was a little bit different from region to region. So, just having a unified assessment form, having a unified measurement scale, assessment scale, huge wins. And I think what we recognized was that we developed all the tools, assessment tools. Standards are the same. Everyone's working off the same kind of score sheet, musical score sheet now. But we're still in a place where the processes are quite different. And in order to really get consistent, we need to kind of level that playing field even more so. So a couple of years ago, a pretty significant meeting out by DIA Airport, the leadership got together again, and an education panel, we were talking about all the successes and wins from the strategic alignment stuff, but we realized that until we talk about we talked about the P word, process. I'm all about consistency and unification as long as you don't mess with my process. That was like that was the line, And so we dared not talk about process, but it's like, okay, we gotta start talking about this, because if we don't, we've come about as far as we can go. So so that's kind of how that went down, and so here we are now. What we're doing is we're tracking over the next 3 years. This is a 3-phased approach by May 29th of 2026. That's the date, just because we had to pick a date, but where we have all, committed, or we're striving towards process unification across disciplines. And it'll look a little bit different discipline to discipline, but a teaching people skills assessment module, if you will, should probably be pretty similar across disciplines and certainly across the regions. And so there's a new task force called the Collaborative Alignment Task Force, the CAT, led by Matt Boyd and Zoe Mavis, and they're working with multidiscipline representatives to take a look at what a unified or close to a unified teaching assessment environment could look like. And that would be teaching and people skills. So that's an example of what we're working towards. So over the next 3 years, we hope to get closer and closer and closer to be able to launch during the 26-27 season, truly unified processes across. And I think people get excited when they hear us talk about that. They think we're going to just homogenize everything and make it so cookie cutter, and it's all going to be the same, and it's going to be, there's going to be no pizzazz to it. But it's a dynamic environment. You still need to set up the activities based on the conditions du jour. You've got the people in front of you that are different than the people in front of you the next day. You have all those amazing aspects that we deal with all the time. But what we're just trying to do is create more consistency around how you might set up an activity, and then what that assessment environment looks like in terms of timeframes and things like that. So now you can use the assessment tools and really qualify and really assess to the criteria, do justice by the criteria. And in which case, you get more of a consistent process. There's more of an equitable experience for the members, fair, hopefully not as biased, less subjective, all those types of things. So,
yeah. I think if it was going to be easy, it probably wouldn't be worth doing.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. I mean, even as much as, Angela and I have had a bunch of conversations I have with Chris Erickson, of course, he'll tell you his eyes will roll when I challenge him because, we all have our biases and what we want to hold on to, and a lot of it just comes from what we know. I know a lot of my bias, the way I think it should go, is because of what I've done here in the East over the years as an examiner and now assessor called in some regions. But we hold on to that. But I am excited that it's going to be more across the country, that my certification, my credential will be more validated in the future as more of a standard for the country versus just, in the past, I know, especially when I first came in, it was definitely, what region are you in? Were you in the East or the West or Central? Or, I think it'll be definitely looked at, hopefully in a more positive way, that this is the same credential everywhere in the U.S. So and if it was easy, it would have been done. I think whatever comes out, as much as we battle for process, I think it'll come out superb. And I don't think each one of us will be happy with every piece.
Yeah.
So,
Dave, you mentioned that, just the level of your experience is how you've come to become good at being an evaluator or an assessor or something like that. And you mentioned Josh Fogg, and the idea around the 3-year training cycle for education staff isn't necessarily revolved around a specific process, because we recognize in 3 years' time, we're all going to be doing a slightly different process. It's about the skill sets in evaluation. And so we're looking to train up and get better at evaluative skills, basically, and how we can use the tools, as I mentioned, the assessment tools, to the criteria, and then to really be able to speak to how you arrived at your scores using the tools. And it's different than kind of that master apprentice approach to examining that many of us went through. It's like you just shadowed a bunch of stuff. You probably hung out with Bob Shostak a lot, and you learned a ton from Bob and Billy Bierman. And next thing you know, you're like, oh yeah, I got this now. I can do that now. I know it when I see it, but that's really hard to replicate, especially as new staff are coming on. So the goal here is training the evaluative skills allows someone to be able to defend how they came up with their score. And then they can have a conversation with someone else, and maybe they're paired up doing that assessment. And then they have a conversation about how they arrived at their scores. Well, that just ups our consistency. just, I mean, flat out. And the fact that we have the same tools from region to region, I can be here in Rocky and Angelo can come over as a guest assessor or examiner. We can do an assessment together and we can probably get pretty close to agreeing on a score because we've had a conversation about it and how the tools relate to the score that we're seeing, so that's how we're going to get more consistent. We simply can't do the master apprentice approach in volume anmore,
Right.
So
because that's what it was. It was go out and watch those that are doing it now, and you learn how to do it the way they do it, we're not all learning it from the same person across the country. So so Interski. Oh my God. I was at home here in the US and this one was super cool. Just in terms of the internet access, the amount of access that was given to those that weren't at Interski. I definitely was looking at the webcams and watching the team come down, and it was kind of a bummer. The webcam didn't go at the stage when some of the stuff was going on, like the bands or when people were up on the stage, but you could see the ski hill and definitely watch some of the keynotes. Absolutely watched a bunch of those, and it was really cool. All that. And I just wanted your overall to start with, just your thoughts on Interski. It must have been pretty cool. I know you also stayed on, I think, for an extra week or so, which was very smart to enjoy the Scandinavia up there and in Finland. But what are some of your thoughts as the director of education on the team and the experience of Interski?
Yeah, it's overwhelming, I guess, experience and success from just a global standpoint of thinking about growing the sport. A couple things that come to mind. Certainly proud of the work that our team did to represent, not just, not in terms of this, that we joke about like who won Interski. It's not a competition about that, even though we did. No, but no, it's more about what we contributed to that global stage. What's cool in my experience from now, this is my third Interski. In Ushuaia, there wasn't necessarily a clearly defined theme, but in Bulgaria and Pamparovo, the theme was, what's the future of snow sports? And we presented to the world that we believe the future is in a deeper connection, aka people skills. And people kind of were like, what are you talking about? What is that? And how are you going to measure that? You're actually going to try to train that and assess that. And, I would say we presented it as a concept, but we didn't necessarily have all the answers. But we did say that we believe it's part of it. And we're going to figure it out or work towards it. And we're going to come back and levy, and hopefully we'll have something to show for it. So when the levy theme came out as the guest experience is everything, it's like, man, that was just like perfect. Just plays into what our association has been all about with student-centered focus, teaching the people in front of you, and where we've gone with the development of the behaviors of people skills and fundamentals and how they actually can be trained and how they can be measured, so a lot there in terms of rounding out that learning connection framework or that model that's really become something that's been foundational in everything that we do, even if a new manual comes out. So just that work, just seeing that work evolve and seeing it come, to where it was in Levy and the amount of people that were really interested in that work and listening and hearing from the team, and then seeing some of the evolution of some of the other countries and teams latch on to what their idea of what connection skills or people skills might look like and how they would incorporate that kind of into teaching. Was cool because we said, hey, if we're in a flat-ish industry, if we're going to grow this sport, we got to figure something out here. We got to create, a little bit more of a spark for not just having a good time on the snow, but like, can we ignite learning? That's kind of what it's been in my mind too. It's like you can only go so far to show someone a good time, and then they're going to go look for somebody else. Well, why is that? It's like, well, because learning's not occurring maybe as much as it could. So, I don't know. I'm rambling now about just philosophical pieces about the impact of what Interski is, but it's about what we work really hard to do to present back our concepts of how we can grow the sport. But it's just as much as how we get and learn from the impact of what other people are doing as well. And there is a little bit of this almost like pushing each other, to kind of expand the thinking in that realm. So,
yeah, Angela, you had some personal reflections on Interski. I remember you talking to me. I don't know if we talked about them all on your Reflections podcast, but you definitely talked about watching the U.S., the PSIA-AASI team members, our contingent, when they were in situations and interacting, when they were doing sessions and just when they were interacting with people over there. And you had some different thoughts on how you could see the skill level of their people skills compared to some of the other countries.
I think
put them on the spot, Dave, but I had to.
I'm laughing because I had this image of like being an American in another country, the timing of it, the geopolitical reality of just how we all get along as humans on this planet, and things were and continue to be hot in Russia and Ukraine. And my mom's biggest concern was I was 100 miles from the Russian border and the whole thing. But what I'm getting at is I had this image of what our uniforms could be for next time, and it includes a cowboy hat, because I think people looked, the American cowboy and that whole thing. But I think when you asked that question, the thing that popped into my head was, on the last day on Friday, the only on snow session I went to was with Ben Potts and Ryan Christopherson doing a freestyle session. And I wanted to see that one in particular because I think, I'm biased, but if you're going to learn freestyle anything, it should be from an American, right? Because that's what we are. We set trends in that way. But it worked out that I could see this on Friday before we left the next day, and watching. It was a big group, so we broke up, and I went with Ryan. But just watching Ryan, who is the quintessential California kid, presenting freestyle to the rest of the world, it was like watching this combination of some terrific lecturer, because he did a beautiful job with the content. It was just, it's his wheelhouse, and it was terrific. And they started the session with this teaser. It was so foggy, like we're standing on this huge runway to this huge kicker, and we're all standing up there, and it's foggy. You can barely see it. And they had this whole spiel planned out where Ryan's standing there and Ben skis down on. He's like, I'll go look at it, make sure nobody's going to knuckle. But we're all thinking, oh my God, like if I have to jump off this thing, there's a good chance like I'm not going to make it back to the States. Like at least not going to make my flight. But the whole thing was a sham. And it was to get us feeling uncomfortable. And then they exploded this beautiful people skills session on this group about fear and managing fear. It was so well done. But watching Ryan, after the groups split up, present that as some kind of a combination, terrific lecture with this Jeff Spicoli, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, just legit California dude. He married it perfectly. And I thought to myself as I was watching it with people from all sorts of different countries, and I was just kind of proud. I was proud of Ryan. I was proud to be from the States at that point, because it was like, there's nobody else here who could pull this off as well as this dude is right now. And it was fantastic. It was just really, really good. But I don't even remember what your question was.
It was just that, just how our team was able to interact with people and the people skills. I know you had mentioned to me that you could really tell at times during some of the sessions, not that you didn't say the other teams were bad at it. You could just see that our team had elevated their communication skills and their ability to connect with each individual person. And you had said how you could see that difference pretty distinctly.
Well, it just from my vantage point, seeing a limited number of presentations, it just came across as legit. There was nothing contrived about it.
Right.
But there are other influences that sort of play in because, for as well as Ryan did, he's a ski instructor. That's what he does. Some of the other presentations you go about people skills, for example, just as an example, like you're not hearing it from, it's a ski instructor who also happens to be, multiple PhD at some university. So it just comes across more academic.
Right.
Whereas Ryan came across as more legit, freestyle, great ski instructor, But you're not going to see a bad presentation of Interski. They were all so good.
Right.
But it was just interesting to experience the vibe from the different countries. And I've mentioned specifically the German session on mindfulness that I went to, and we all chuckled, including the Germans. They were like, yeah, we know what it sounds like. But it was so good, it makes you think. But one of the things that also makes you think is I wonder if they would have done this if we hadn't been doing it for the last couple of years. If it hadn't gone that way in Bulgaria, would it be going this direction, this strong right now?
Yeah.
So there is all the teams are watching. Everybody's taking from each other, and then you get proud of the stuff you're doing, and you think is better than what the other kind of, like Porter said on the last show. And I think Mike makes a great point about we have to account for people who are coming on all sorts of different gear with all sorts of different goals. Yeah. So that's very much a strength of our system, and we're proud of that. I don't see us giving that up anytime soon. Whereas you go to a presentation from Croatia or somebody, it's very, very race oriented, and it's just a very different thing, what you're seeing. But that being said, you could say we have a looser approach. I don't know if looser is the right word because I still think it's super high quality. It's broader for sure, but you look at what Croatia did, which was very pressure edge race oriented versus what we do, and you have to ask yourself, well maybe we should add a little bit of that into our next manual, But the point is what Dave said. That's the dialectic of the whole event. Everybody watches, everybody borrows, everybody builds, and comes back better the next time. That's the beauty of it. It's a truly democratic event in that sense.
And Interski, a lot of our members go, what are they bringing back? And some things, we talked about it with Mike Porter, Angela. We talked last time with Mike, Dave on it that, it's hard to sometimes bring concrete things back. People like you guys have your experiences and they become part of you. And some of that, bring it back and putting it into your own teaching or skiing, is displayed, but it might be hey, this is what I brought back. It becomes part of what you do. And a lot of our educators, our team members that go. But what are some of the tangible stuff? You guys have been doing some great webinars. A bunch of the team members have been on there giving their reflections of some of the different countries they went to and things. I'm curious of some of our team member stuff. Like I know that, if I can remember the three, it was Brian Smith and Troy Walsh and Stephen Helfenbein, I believe, did the decisions, if I'm correct. They did, and that wasn't one that was filmed across that you could see across the net when it happened. Is that because they did a piece on snow and off snow with that, I believe. Are some things like that going to be coming back and with the team doing those things across the country, or?
Yeah, we'll see a deeper dive in some of that content in the winter edition of 32 Degrees that will be coming out here actually very shortly, probably within the next week. If you're in Wisconsin, you'll get it first because that's where they're printed. But yeah, so there'll be more on that, and there is more content that we shot. Of what we run around like crazy trying, myself and a few others trying to just video as much content as we can, and I'm still sifting through a lot of that. And so some of those little snippets, the decisions, behaviors, indoor lecture was so standing room only that you couldn't really get a good camera angle and things. Just that's the nature of Interski. It happens, but what we'll be seeing though is, even though maybe it was delivered or presented maybe for the first-ish time on the international stage, Interski also proves to almost be a bit of a research and development stage as well, to throw some ideas out there, get some feedback from the rest of the world, and then bring it back, tweak it, and then bring it back to our membership. So that's been going on for a long time. The learning connection model is a great example. For Ushuaia, that was what was introduced as simply a concept of what the current team was working on at the time, and not in pockets of the team. So Alpine was working on one thing, snowboard a different thing. And it was just a matter of how can we put that together in an infographic that tells the story of what the team's currently thinking about and working on. Well, next thing you know, bam, we've got this model that is the watermark of everything we're doing. That's just one example. And then things get refined. We recognize that the outer ring of the learning connection, decisions and behaviors of the instructor, we hadn't really put much time and development around what that really means. And so the Interski was just the tip of the iceberg on a ton of more content that's coming, so I think that's exciting. And so even though, there might be this feeling, this FOMO feeling of like, I missed out, I missed it, whatever else. It's like, well, members are about to receive the benefits of the experience that was just a blip on the radar and all the future development that's coming. Yeah. And it's hard to kind of, just say that and get people to get excited about that. But it's really been something that's driven a lot of the work and everything that we do. So,
yeah. And I think your point with the learning connection model, that's a big one. I mean, that's not a tiny piece, and that has come out, as you say, from the team going to multiple Interskis and having things vetted and working it out. And that's come out to obviously be a pretty darn good piece that might not be from one specific Interski, but it's from a bunch, which is even better. Which is cool. That's very tangible. I think when I know Angelo is like, our world should be built around that, which I agree with.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
one thing that members probably didn't even realize that happened, but it just kind of happened in terms of the outer ring and decisions and behaviors, is this concept of professionalism and self-management that we see on every assessment form now. It's a people skills and self-awareness that was broken out by itself to cover this idea of being a consummate professional all the time, which is why you see it on every assessment form. So that's directly related to the outer ring of the learning connection in terms of this idea of decisions and behaviors, how it relates to professionalism and self-management as a snow pro, whether you're interacting in the exam environment with your guests, with your fellow mountain employees, with your regional counterparts, wherever it is, you're a pro. So that's a little piece that's kind of then is going to continue to get evolved as we dig deeper into that.
Dave, you interviewed me last season when I came back, and I remember talking about the Czechoslovakian session I went to where they talked about mirror neurons. Yeah. And I heard a couple of countries presented this concept of mirror neurons and how these are brain structure, nerve cells in the brain that respond to, that are involved with both social interaction and learning. Right. So monkey see, monkey do kind of gig, but it's the brain science behind it. I went to this session that Czechoslovakia was doing about this topic, and I got paired up with a girl from Australia who's on their team named Angela Pope. And we did some activities together, a couple hour session, right? But what like the intro to each, like staring each other in the eyes, and the whole point of their session, the whole end point was that you're going to make a connection from this person and learn from them. But the way they established the connection was like uncomfortably long, direct eye contact. And then you start mirroring each other. And then you start, one did one thing, but the other one had to do the opposite. But you're really paying attention. And I talked about that session on that podcast we did. And then Angie and I were riding up the T-bars together, like everybody's riding with their partners. And very quickly, our conversations got very deep. And it went to, like politics. And we just felt comfortable with each other. And we made contact on social media and so on and so forth. Anyway, fast forward to last week. I hadn't interacted with Angie for months. I get this message from her and she said, "Hey, I'm coming to work in the States at Aspen this winter, and I need somebody to vouch for me from PSIA to get my O visa." And it's just a quick note with an attachment. "Will you fill this out? I totally understand if you don't want to, totally cool. But of all the people I met at Interski, you're the one I connected with the most." And that was after a 2-hour session that was geared toward making us connect. And when I read that, I read it and then did a double take. I'm like, oh, those sneaky Czechs. They got us, But another piece of that I think I spoke about on the show that you and I did last year was, at that time, our People Skills Task Force, which I was a part of, and the Teaching Skills Task Force were sort of, they weren't very active at the time. We were in the winter. The fundamentals and the performance guides had been published, so there wasn't a lot going on, but they were kind of sitting idle, right, during that time. And then the next thing I know, I get this job and I learn that those task forces had been combined. So now it's the CAT, the Collaborative Alignment Task Force that Dave mentioned. And like looking at that sequence of events and looking at that big picture and going, oh, okay, right. So things that we say just off the cuff, like, oh, you'll hear people say this all the time. There's a lot of connection between the people skills and the teaching skills. There's a lot of overlap between people and teaching skills. And I think we all accept that as true because it's pretty, it makes a lot of sense without a lot of analysis, But these mirror neurons may be the exact reason that there is overlap between people skills and teaching skills, because they are brain structures that deal with socialization and learning. So if that's all happening in the same brain structure, it makes a lot of sense that our task forces came together. It makes a lot of sense that Angie emailed me from Australia because we made this connection in a 2-hour session a year ago. You know what I mean? But and the reason I bring that up is because you said, tangible things. That's tangible thing. Like, look, it's amazing to look at how that series of events unfolded. And can be directly tied back to just interacting with somebody on a T-bar at an Interski event, at the North Pole. Like it's just wild. And then that information, as we build and develop and produce and publish things, it's going right to our members and it's going right to the skiing public. And that's a direct connection between Interski and the folks who come take lessons from us at our home resorts.
Love it when a plan comes together. See, if you say it with confidence, it makes it seem as though you planned it all along. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think people want to come back and they want an exact presentation or they want the exact article. And I think over, my era of being a member is almost 30. It's over 30 years now, I think, that, you've seen definitely more come back, and a lot of that's communication and internet and Zoom and that kind of stuff. But there's definitely also, I think, with time and the experience, you can see like you guys are talking, these things develop. I mean, the learning connection you can't look at one Interski. That was a process. So we need the process to come up with these things. It might not just be one event. Mm-hmm. It's a couple of Interskis that all of a sudden then we see the tangible stuff. Unless we're lucky like Angelo, and he makes all these connections. And how long was it? Was it 10 minutes? You had to do the mirroring and you made it, the connection and that in 2 hours.
Yeah. That's the speed, quick way to do it.
Yeah. But awesome. This has been awesome. Dave, thank you so much for taking the time to come do this with us. Angela and I, when we got this started, we just wanted to have some fun stuff and talk about our outdoor stuff and skiing, especially because that's what we get out and do. And our love for PSIA-AASI and was definitely a big part of it. We do some other stuff, but it's really cool to have you on because Angelo is, we both love the education, but Angelo definitely has a little one up there, man. He is into the education on a different level in terms of his knowledge and experience and ability from schooling and all that stuff, where I'm just a hardcore out there and the real word hard knocks learning it. But it's cool that we have the director of education for the organization with us, and I'm psyched. You made a great decision, and Angelo there, I believe. I think he's going to do some great stuff for us. So it's really cool to have that connection, and neat for the folks out there to hear what his role is going to be compared to yours, not compared, but with yours to work together. So, it's really kind of neat. Any parting words, Angelo?
Cowboy hats.
Yeah. Any more Zoom calls tonight?
Any more tonight? No.
No, but I'm pretty excited for the fall, and I know Dave will. I don't know. I'm going to try to get on. I'm coming up for Rocky Mountain tele training.
Right on. I'll be there.
Yeah, I'm planning on. It's cool. So I'll see you there. And Angela was hoping to come to that. There you go, Angela.
If you look at my calendar, I might be going somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. Jim Shaw's been pushing us for years, and some of the crew has been going out. And I just figured this year I can't do the Examiner College type stuff in the spring, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it this fall. So, yep, awesome. My flight's booked and ready to roll to come out. So I'm looking forward to that. That should be fun. They can kick my butt on the tele skis for 3 days. First turns on snow, and I'll be sore going home on the flight.
We all will. Yeah.
Maybe they can teach you how to do a parallel.
It's good for the soul.
Yeah, they can teach me how to do a parallel, as Angela says.
Maybe you'll accidentally do a parallel turn on your tele skis.
There you go. But no, this has been cool, and we'd love to have you back sometime, anytime, or if there's some cool stuff coming out, or just want to chat. We'd love to have you because it's that's definitely just kind of sharing ideas, and it's great to hear the experiences of some of the other regions where you're out there in the West, and then also in connection so much with everybody leadership-wise across the country and the team. The team's been great coming on. We've had a ton of team members, and we still have some. Maybe we got to have Zoe on pretty soon, huh? Zoe Mavis needs to come on.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. We hear she's awesome, not just good. So, yeah. But thanks, everybody. This has been The Fall Line with Chaos and Company, and we have had Dave Schuiling, our Director of Education, on from out west, of course, because he's going to have snow before all of us. But thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.
Been a pleasure, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks.